The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
As you know, Lieutenant Mike Zullo of the Sheriff Arpaio cold case posse, he and I were together out there, and we were on a fishing expedition. And I called in and reported live from there with some news. But today I'll give you more of a recap on everything that happened and kind of where we're going with all of this. Basically, Lieutenant Zullo, of course, being the lead investigator of that posse, some 15 months of criminal investigation with 6 or 7 or 8 criminal investigators involved in that, either with law enforcement and or legal, attorneys who have been involved in prosecuting and or law enforcement. Those are the people that make up that posse. And so Lieutenant Mike Zullo is the head of that, and they've been working about 15 months with several digital document experts and forensics people, forensics examiners, digital document forensics examiners, and what they have determined is that the only piece of identifying document that the man in the White House has ever proffered to the United States, ever brought before the people, stood with it in his hand, it is posted on the website as his, quote, long-form birth certificate. It's a forgery. It's a fake. It's a fraud. It's a manipulated, fabricated document. There's nothing real about it. As a matter of fact, it looks like it was fabricated from scratch, actually, from the joining together of several various documents. Now, I can tell you this. I've been telling you for many months that Sheriff Arpaio and Lieutenant Zullo have not stopped. They have not given up. They have moved forward with the case. They've moved forward in their investigations. And that's all I've been able to tell you. Lieutenant Zullo and I have talked a lot off air, of course, and in confidential conversations. And this is before, of course, we went to Washington together. But in those conversations, he was assuring me, without being able to give me all the details, most of our conversations were by phone, and you want to be very careful what you transmit over telephone, but he was assuring me that they had moved forward and had collected even more evidence. They had discovered more things that point to criminal activity in and around the White House. So now I can assure you, since I have been with him personally for 4 or 5 days in and around Washington, D.C., and in and out of meetings with very important people, and that's the only title I'm going to use for these folks right now, because what else I'm going to tell you, you'll understand, is of an extremely sensitive nature. But in these meetings, I've heard the evidence. I've listened to it. I've looked at it. I know what Sheriff Arpaio and Lieutenant Mike Zullo have been doing in the cold case posse. And folks, please trust me. I don't know if anything will ever come of this. I mean, we're working hard to make sure that something big does come of it. But, of course, I can't promise you that, and no one else can, because this is all dependent upon, politicians at the federal level, at the state level. It's dependent upon the legal process. It's dependent upon courts. It's a mess. But if something does come, and by the way, we're closer right now than we ever have been to something coming from it. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But it could be that nothing will ever come from it. But the bottom line is, whether anything comes from it or not, for those of you that have been concerned about that birth certificate and the legitimacy of it, you're not crazy. And the people who call you crazy are crazy. You are right. You have been right all along. I have been right all along. Now, I want you to know this is not a birther issue anymore. The first several years of me looking into this, I was very concerned about where he was born and where he's actually from. I can tell you I still am concerned about that. That's a constitutional issue, and I'm not ashamed of it. I make no bones about, if somebody tags me as a birther, I say, yeah, if you mean a birther is somebody that cares about where the president was born because the Constitution has something specific to say about it, then yes, I'm a birther, and I'm proud of it. You can tag that on me all you want. It's not a pejorative to me. I wear it as a badge badge of honor. But this particular topic, that Lieutenant Zullo and I went to Washington, and by the way, we wound up on Capitol Hill, into the offices and conference rooms in Washington, D.C., speaking with very important people, several very important people. We wound up in meetings at the CPAC, in conference rooms and in private rooms with some very important people of standing, people who can make things happen on this. That's all I can say at this point. But the bottom line is they looked at the evidence, and we presented to them, this is not a birther case. We at this point, we don't care where he was born. I mean, I do care, but that's not what this case is about. Felonies and federal crimes, forgeries, fabrications being committed in and around the White House, possibly with the knowledge of one Barack Hussein Obama himself. The only reason I say possibly is because there's, that's an ongoing legal investigation, and I just can't say much more than that. But possibly. But regardless of whether Obama himself was involved in fabricating the document, I doubt seriously if Obama put his hands on a digital fabrication piece of software. I doubt that seriously. But somebody did. And Obama stood at a podium and waved it in front of the world and said, this is my birth certificate, thumbed his nose, then went on the talk show circus. Do you remember that? And made fun of us, those of us who have questioned the legitimacy of his identification. Not necessarily whether he's an American or not. I mean, I have questioned that, yes, and I still do. But I'm saying it's not really at this point about where he was born. As to a crime has been committed, he is at least indirectly complicit in it because he held up the piece of criminal evidence and said, this is mine. And now you have to ask, see, it's really not a question of, is the birth certificate legitimate? Folks, hear me. Look me in the eyes. Can you do that on radio? Look me in the eyes. It is not legitimate. 100% settled and signed off on, by the way, by digital document experts who are certified to testify in every federal court in this land. So, I mean, big people have been involved in this. Lieutenant Zullo and Sheriff Arpaio have not been lying to you. The frustration for them has been to get somebody with standing who gives a care about it. That's why Lieutenant Zullo and I went to Washington, to see if we could face-to-face get in contact with people and say, look, quit avoiding us, quit dodging us, quit pretending like this doesn't exist, sit down, hear what we have to say, and if you want to walk away from it after that, go ahead, but at least you can never say you didn't see the evidence, I mean, quit listening to Glenn Beck and these idiots out there with their little theories of how crazy we are. Glenn Beck is an idiot. Glenn Beck is a fool. He's an absolute moronic joke of a fool. Listen, folks, the truth of this is going to come. It's like we told one very important person we were sitting in front of and said, look, here's the deal. This is not going away. This truth will come out. This truth is so huge. It's like everything else in history. I mean, unless the Lord returns in the meantime, this truth will come out. Okay? So now it's a matter of where you want to be in history. What side of history do you want to be on when it comes out? See, Glenn Beck is a babbling fool on this issue. So is Bill O'Reilly. And I can go down the list. They're bumbling, babbling idiots. They do not know. They have not laid eyes on what I have laid eyes on, and what all of these investigators have laid eyes on, and what all of these forensics laboratories that are willing to testify in federal court right now. They're chomping at the bits. We know. But Beck and O'Reilly and these other idiots out there just calling us names, playing the little lemming role, running off the end of the cliff because everyone else is doing it. They're idiots. I'm just going to tell you that. By the way, if you want to call up and talk, 623-1330, area code 850. You can agree, you can disagree, you can ask me questions. If I'm not saying something you want to know, I mean, call me, ask me. If I can tell you, I will. If I can't, I won't. I'm sure you'll think of things I'm not even thinking about. My mind has been in a whirlwind for the last week and a half. As you know, I was asked by members of the Cold Case Posse to go up there to Washington, and my wife knows this is true. I was right on the verge of turning them down. I've been so busy. I'm writing this book for W&D Books. books. They're talking about making a documentary movie out of that book. I've been going crazy with that. Of course, I pastor an awesome and lovely and wonderful and growing church, and, of course, this radio program and everything else that I do. I just didn't have time to leave and go to Washington for 4 or 5 days on a fishing expedition. But I believe God was all over it, and the Lord really impressed it upon my heart to go, and we did. And we made some contact with some very important people on Capitol Hill and at CPAC. And those important conversations led indirectly to other important conversations and important contacts at state and federal level around the nation. And those things continue to pile up. And in the last several days since I've been back, Lieutenant Zullo and I, have received phone calls and emails from very important people at state and federal levels looking to have more meetings, looking to see this evidence, looking to submit it to more investigation, looking to move it along and get something done. Folks, it wouldn't surprise me if these people will do what they say they're going to do, that in the next month or two, and I know for some of you this seems like an eternity, but this has been going on for 5 years, so we can wait 4, 5, 6 more weeks. But in the next month or two, we might see something happen at a national level, international level, actually. And when it does, then I'll be able to come on here and start calling names and say, okay, that's because of the people we talked to, and that happened here, and that happened here, and this person's doing this because of this. Then I'll be able to do it. But right now, I just can't get into those kind of details lest we blow the whole thing out of the water. Listen, there are folks in Washington, D.C. that listen to this radio program. Now, I'm not trying to be arrogant. I'm telling you because they told me when I was there. Okay, I ran into people at CPAC that watched P.P. Simmons and listened to Freedom Friday. People were walking up to me in a crowd. Not bunches of them, but 3 or 4 people did out of 10,000 people there and said, we know who you are. We listen to your radio program. We look at all your P.P. Simmons stuff. We know what's going on. So I'm telling you, folks, I've got to be careful about giving too much information today. But I've got a lot more to say about it, and we've got folks on the line. So let's take a quick time out. We'll come back, and we'll talk to the people that want to talk to us. So we finally had that meeting after several promises. Yeah, I'll get with you. And, of course, he knew who Lieutenant Zullo was. But the bottom line was, when everything was said and done, he saw all the evidence that caused very important people on Capitol Hill and at CPAC to have their jaws on the table and to say to us, we will do further things, and that's all I can tell you right now. So Alan West, this so-called champion of the conservative cause, he hears and sees the very same stuff. Here's his reaction. Well, I can't do anything with this because I might want to run for political office. I kid you not. And that's what's wrong with Washington. You know, and because he's supposed to be the champion of the conservative movement, so people are fooled by him, he's not near the man you might think he is. I'm telling you, I was there with him for 3 or 4 days. Now, he may change. He may come around. He might wind up being a huge champion of this movement, especially, and here's what's going to happen. You watch. Some of these other people that he doesn't even know about are going to come forward and make this into a big deal. They're going to start being heroes with the American public, and Alan West is going to pile on and say, oh, yeah, I was there all along. You watch. But I'll call him out on it. There's my Alan West story, Marshall. Bill, welcome to Freedom Friday. Thanks for listening. What's on your mind?
You made mention on the P.P. Simmons site about this gal, this supposed cousin of Barack Obama in the Kansas. Can you help fill us in a little bit on that? Cause
I can a little bit, yeah.
Her blog isn't the easiest to read.
I know. Listen, there's 8 people that work for P.P. Simmons. I'm the founder of it, and I contribute videos, especially from the spiritual side and a few others. But I am not the one who's been in direct contact with her. But let me just tell you, this is huge. She claims that she is a half-sister of Obama and that she knows everything about him, where he was born, who he's from, who his mother and father are, and she claims it's not the people that we think they are. And she's got all this evidence. She says she has filed and filled out affidavits. She's living in Europe right now. She's terrified of the Obama family and the operatives. But we're trying to get her hooked up with this investigation because she has talked to high-ranking people around the nation, and they have got her stuff. They took affidavits from her, and then they, quote, shoveled it away, covered it up, and she ran scared and she left the country. So she is now reaching out and making contact with P.P. Simmons because she knows what we've been doing. And we're trying to get her hooked up with the cold case posse and assuring her that if she can give good information that can be backed up and we'll testify to it and we'll put it in affidavit form, that we will not cover it up. We will bring it forward to the entire world.
Do you believe that she is legitimate?
We don't know. We don't know. We want to talk to. When I say we, y'all please hear me. I'm not an investigator. I'm not playing investigator. Lieutenant Zullo is. When I say we, it's just because I've been with him all week long. That's all. That's all I mean by that. So please don't anybody read anything into that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting because it goes to your earlier point about saying, well, it doesn't really matter where he was born. This is a different issue altogether.
Yeah.
We're talking about forgery. We're talking about
That's right.
Things of that nature.
That's right.
Which I agree 110% with.
Yeah.
Is that if you have an avenue to go down that avenue.
That's right. That's the avenue we're going down. And Bill, I'm sorry, I got to cut you.
To ride, and it may produce fruit, but
yeah.
we wish it
But we don't know. That's right. And Bill, we're up against a heartbreak, so I had to cut you off. I'm so sorry, but you're right. And Bill, thank you for calling.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.